Dean has stepped out of line. Dean has stepped out of line. Hasan is about to fix this. We can see. I can see where this is going immediately. Dean, you have stepped off course because he's just got that psychotic look to him. It's just like Dean says like one vaguely negative thing or vaguely like critical thing about Hasan. Hasan comes in, doesn't really address the broad strokes of the video, just goes, yeah, it's all just DG haters, and then Dean folds. Okay. What face is it? What face is this? What emotion are we conveying here? Get to the point, buddy. What is he even eating? What is this? Dude, what does he do there? Why does he slide it in like that? Why does he slide it in? He slowly edges the chicken into his mouth. Let's watch this. Let's see this. All right. So, I have heard that Dean Withers on his TikTok live stream. We all know Dean Withers here, don't we? We all know Dean Withers. Dean Withers is a Democrat Party shill, young eunuch. He's the equivalent of a Nintendog, a political Nintendog for women who are past the wall, past menopause, but care about abortion and reproductive rights far too much for their position in life. That's who Dean is, okay? He is just like a TikTok plastic character that spits platitudes about how we need to get women's rights and how we hate Trump, how we hate Orange Man so much. But they present him, the media runs endless puff pieces about this guy, saying he's the Democrats' bro whisperer and the Joe Rogan of the left and all this sort of stuff, when he is the most insufferable, reptilian, annoying, gay, little weirdo in the world. So that's Dean Withers, okay? He's been on Jubilee many times. He's been on Jubilee. It's like one Democrat teen versus 20 BBC Trump supporters, you know? It's that sort of thing. One young white Democrat teen versus 20 BBC Trump supporters. That's the Jubilee videos that this guy's in. So sort of Jubilee videos this guy does. And so he was on this TikTok live stream the other day. And apparently, I think he's talking about like the content nuke, the Hasan H3 content nuke stuff or something. And then Hasan joins to admonish him. So we're going to watch some of his live stream here. He's also balding. Very important to note, he's balding quite heavily. If you check it, if you've seen a photo of his crown, he has a terrible bald spot on his crown. So we're going to watch Dean Withers here. One young... I can't even do it, mate. Let's watch the video.
One Hasan and H3.
Yeah. Wait.
Yeah, that's insane. That I do know about.
I was gonna say.
I don't know much about that either. Actually,
I don't know anything about that.
I know more than Parker.
All I know is that I reacted to the first 10 minutes of the content nuke on stream, trying to be objective as possible. Objective as possible. And now like H3's fanboys think that I love Ethan, and Hasan's fanboys think that I hate Hasan.
Yeah.
But like
that's usually sorry, go ahead.
But I was giving like so many disclaimers that like no, not at all. Like not at all. And
dude, listen, it's such a disgusting reptilian. It's driving me insane already. Because you know exactly what's happening here. It's just like the preservation of a clout network, constantly. He's not taking a position. He's trying to give as many disclaimers as possible to just, or what he's done in this previous statement is give as many disclaimers as possible to essentially water the position down into not existing. So he's not actually saying anything, and no one can be offended. And that hasn't worked. People have still gotten upset. I know he's like, I didn't want to burn a bridge with either of them. I wanted to be friends with everyone. So too bad, buddy. Too bad. There is a irreconcilable disagreement here that you have to pick a stance on. You have to take a clear stance on various different topics here, because that is the audience you have. That is the audience you have. So you're gonna have to say something, buddy. Bad news.
You know, like I guess I will say I've I've learned so much from Hasan about like what it means to you know, be like a man.
Also, how do you keep up the bro whisperer facade doing this? Okay, agreeableness is a feminine trait. It is a feminine trait. So how is he the bro whisperer when every take he gives is like the most agreeable, like, oh, well, I just think that maybe we should give minorities more rights. That's all I think. I just think maybe the world should be a better place for minorities to have more rights. How can you possibly be the Joe Rogan left bro whisperer, manly guy, you know, whatever the fuck they think this is meant to mean, whatever the fuck Democrat media thinks it's meant to mean? How the fuck can you be that when you're like the most pussified, agreeable loser in the world?
Left, if that makes any sense. And it's people like Hasan that really led me in the direction of you know, being on the left. And I think that
guys, don't hate me, but yeah, that's exactly the sort of political commentary that dudes want, that men want. Is guys, don't hate me, but that's why Trump got elected. Is because he starts every opinion with, guys, I don't want anyone to hate me for saying this, but
to do a lot of good, especially for like younger white guys, a lot of good. But dude, I was watching like that content.
Yeah, literally, the bro whisperer thing is literally, that is, again, it reminded me of quoting from an article. I'm not calling him a bro whisperer. A mainstream news publication, media publication, I think it was like, was it New York Times or something? Did like a puff piece on this kid and called him a bro whisperer. The left's bro whisperer.
Holy fuck. There's,
Yeah,
he's
I've
definitely also
watched it.
done like a lot of bad things.
There's so much drama.
Oh,
with the
what
people
the
on YouTube.
fuck?
What?
What the hell?
Oh my god, bro. There's no way.
No.
That's hilarious.
This is a joke, right?
No. Oh, what's going on, brother?
Oh, Hasan joined. Guys, Hasan
I
joined.
literally scrolling. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Bro, that's
Okay.
kind of crazy.
Can you see me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Hasan.
Just watching us like talk about like random drama.
Rolling on my TikTok For You page. I'm sitting here, laying down with Kaya, and right as I'm scrolling, I hear this motherfucker Dean being like, "Yo, I saw the content nuke. I watched the content nuke, and Hasan was my."
Close your fucking mouth. Why is his mouth hanging open? Dean, close your fucking mouth. Why is your mouth hanging open? What is going on, buddy?
No.
Drama.
Definitely also done
Look,
like, a lot of bad things.
he hasn't closed it this whole time.
There's so much drama. With
Oh,
the people
what the
on YouTube.
fuck?
What?
What the hell?
Oh my god, bro. There's no way.
No.
That's hilarious.
Bro is
This is a
catching
joke, right?
flies.
No.
Drooling, catching
What's going on,
flies
brother?
here.
I
Hasan,
literally scrolling. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Bro, that's
Okay.
kind of crazy.
Can you see me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Hasan.
Just watching us like talk about like random drama.
Rolling on my TikTok For You page. I'm sitting here, laying down with Kaya, and right as I'm scrolling, I hear this motherfucker Dean being like, "Yo, I saw the content nuke. I watched the content nuke, and Hasan was my entry point into like doing content on the left."
Thank you for the $5.
Never trust a white guy named Dean.
From Don't Smile Dean. Thank you, Dean.
What's
yeah.
up, guys?
Yeah, what's going
That's
on,
good.
man? I was kind of like talking about how I think that you've done a lot of really good things for people on the left, but I watched like the start of that content nuke. I'm gonna be honest, like I was like, what the fuck? I was like, I saw like a lot of bad things in there, and I'm trying to be objective as possible.
Okay, dude, this is oh no. Dean has stepped out of line. Dean has stepped out of line. Hasan is about to fix this. We can see. I can see where this is going immediately. Dean, you have stepped off course. Dean, Hasan is fighting for the rights, for the lives of the proud Palestinian people, Dean, okay? Do not sit there and hand wring about Hasan's optics when he's fighting for the brave Palestinian people, Dean. You're about to get shown the right way here.
I have to this day not watched the full nuke, I will admit. I only watched a couple pieces of it. Hold on, I'm cracking it in. I actually just watched a couple pieces of it this today on stream. And from what I saw, it was just the same shit that the sex pastini community is clipped out of context. Stuff like saying that I deny rapes on October 7, and it's literally like a 2-second clip. And it's literally me in the fuller context actually arguing with a chatter who said, how can you claim that rapes could have happened on October 7? And I'm saying, like, no, you know, sexual violence has a tendency to occur in moments like this. So, like, I'm not going to immediately dismiss claims of sexual violence happening on October 7. And they clip the part where I say, even if sexual violence did happen, that doesn't change the dynamic of genocide for me at all. I think it's like completely inappropriate to say that it's, you know, that genocide is permissible because sexual violence occurred. And they clip the part where I say, even if sexual or rape doesn't change the dynamic for me about what's going on at all, to make it seem like I'm saying, one, no rapes happen, and two, that I don't care if rapes happen. It's stuff like that. It's riddled with things like that. And claiming that I'm calling like all Jews inbred or whatever, and I'm talking about specifically the fucking terrorist group, like the JDL terrorist group destroying aid that was going into Gaza. And then I describe the context of the situation where I'm like, this is like, if I look at the longer clip from that same time frame, and it's like 30 seconds prior, I'm literally describing like, this is a right-wing settler terrorist group comprised of a bunch of inbred fucking psychos that are going in to destroy.
Okay. For this, okay. This is retarded from Hasan. This is a retarded defense. Because obviously, you can say pretty much the same thing about like many Muslims. Lots of Muslim communities have heavy inbreeding, cousin marriage, first cousin marriage, have heavy amounts of child marriage. So for you to sit there and go, oh, well, there's a bunch of inbred, because, you know, they are inbred. It's like, yeah, that's not really the point, is it, Hasan? You're bringing that up as like an attack on the genetics of this group. And I mean, you can play the same game both ways. And I'm sure if we started talking about, you know, some of the stats of Muslim communities in Turkey or something, you would start freaking the fuck out. So not really a good defense.
Aid going into Gaza. And then he cuts that part to be like, oh, he's calling all Jewish people inbred. It's stuff like that for the most part. That's basic stuff. If you say anything even remotely pro-Palestinian, you're going to get attacked that way all the time on the internet. I'm sure you guys, I mean, you guys live stream a lot, so I'm sure you're very familiar with the ways in which sometimes people clip you out of context. But the thing I took offense to, for the most part, was like the liberal Zionist Hasbara that took place, where he said a bunch of like incredibly ahistorical claims, like that were, I think, very insensitive and also demonstrably untrue, saying that 1 million Jews were displaced from the surrounding Arab regions, like expelled forcibly. And he called the Nakba like the War of Independence or something along those lines. I can't remember exactly what he said. And no, the Nakba was, you know, the forcible expulsion of 750,000 Palestinians from their ancestral homelands from 1947 to 1949. And according to Israeli historian Ilan Pape, this is very well documented. It was planned Dalit. It was a well documented ethnic cleansing operation.
Oh, season.
So it's you know, pretty basic information.
I would agree
about
with your stance on you said if it was actually making South American children trans, but instead it goes to people like Dean Withers.
I don't think it goes to people like Dean Withers. I mean, it goes towards, I mean, I guess it does in like an abstract sense, but Dean Withers ain't getting it, I don't think.
History of Palestine and Israel.
These
so
TikTok guys ain't getting it.
I didn't necessarily care about all the other shit. Him being like, oh, he loves terrorism. Like he there's a moment where he talks about like Hamas and Hezbollah, and he makes it seem as though these resistance groups just kind of exist in the ether, like they just kind of existed historically throughout the inception of the nation state of Israel, when both of these
Does
are.
Dean Withers have rapist blue eyes? It's kind of close. I could totally see Dean Withers raping someone. I think I've even said this before. I think I've literally said before that Dean Withers would rape someone if he thought he could get away with it, I think, personally, based on my judge of his character. Because he's just like that. He is the type of guy that, like, he's willing to take on any skin. He's willing to cross any line, be as dishonest as to get whatever he wants. Yeah, he sees what he wants and he tries to take it. So I could totally see him raping someone, but I feel like he's, like, if he was a rapist, which I'm not saying he is, obviously, I've got no way of knowing that. This is just like a speculation, character judgment. But if he was a rapist, I think he would probably strangle the woman too. Like, not just a little bit, either, like strangle to death. If he was a rapist, I don't think he would just be a rapist. I think he'd be a rapist murderer. Because he's just got that psychotic look to him. And obviously I wouldn't, I'm not saying he's actually like that, because I couldn't possibly know that. But just like, if I was judging a book by its cover and making like baseless, or not baseless, but like inferences based on how he looks and my experience with people that look this way, I would look at someone like this and think they are like he's not as cool, but very heavily,
different forms of Palestinian resistance that has evolved throughout time and increasingly become more violent, and violent in ways that I, of course, disagree with as well. But, it's anytime I talk about their tactics, or anytime I offer context to how, like, even Hamas itself has evolved throughout history, starting as...
I feel like Mr. Robot and Legion are actually very similar in the way the third season, or like the final season of both, is very abstract and different to the rest. But I feel like Legion did it way better than Mr. Robot did. I feel like there wasn't enough stuff that was that abstract as the final few episodes of Mr. Robot was in the rest of the show. So it felt very out of place. But Legion, it felt like a gradual ramping up to the extremely abstract stuff. And season 3 just went hard as fuck. Like, there was no cinematography in Mr. Robot that went hard as, like the cinematography in shit in Legion season 3. I need to not just do a TV show tangent, okay?
A Muslim Brotherhood cutout that was a Islamic charity initially, one that actually Israel supported as well, specifically to undermine the secular resistance groups like the PFLP, DFLP, the PLO in its entirety, because they thought that the Islamist fundamentalists would never garner any sort of positive Western support, making it seem as though these are just like groups that are entirely motivated by anti-Semitism and not developed through the process of 75 years of occupation, death, and destruction. It's all things like that that I consider to be ahistorical. I mean, not that I consider it, it's just ahistorical and completely devoid of nuance. And I think it serves the purpose of defending Israel from a more progressive standpoint. It's not something I'm unfamiliar with. I've heard it a million times over. It's not like as egregious as being like, I hope your beeper is, on notice or whatever. Like, I hope Israel kills you. It's not
First like... First Mr. Robot are trash, essentially for Guy Fawkes mask havers. The whole show obviously appeals to people like that, but it is a good show. But the whole show, just that show is going to obviously appeal to people like that, yes. A story like that is going to obviously appeal to people like that. But it also kind of, it has like, kind of criticism for that outlook, right? It does kind of criticize the Guy Fawkes mask guys.
Like that. But it's another way to, I guess, tackle the issue while consistently presenting Palestinians as like anti-Semitic terrorists across the board while saying you're pro-Palestinian.
Yeah,
media literacy required for Mr. Robot, sadly. Media literacy required.
Yes. So I'm also pro-Palestinian. And
You're on TikTok. You're a Zoomer.
you are infinitely like more educated and invested in Israel and Palestine than I am.
I've seen some Seinfeld.
I understand the basics, and I just very vehemently disagree with ethnic cleansing, genocide, and unwarranted human death. That's as far as my stance goes.
Yeah,
and that's why I'm pro-Palestine. But I will say, like, I've had conversations with Zionists and individuals that are pro-Israeli on live, and next thing you know, just because I don't necessarily support the existence of an ethno-state that wants to eradicate the existence of surrounding Arabs and Arab nations, like, oh, all of a sudden I hate all Jewish people. Or because I think that Zionism is bad because it's predicated on, colonialism and imperialism, all of a sudden it's anti-Semitic. So I understand how, one could posture a pro-Palestinian view to be anti-Semitic to kind of just diminish the value and support of a humane cause. Yeah. But I don't know the specifics and the intricacies at all. But I want to learn more, and I want to learn more about.
Dean don't know the specifics about fucking anything, does he? He don't know the specifics about fucking anything. He literally just does the retarded, like, surface level. Do you think abortion's bad? Well, actually, the brain doesn't develop until that's like his entire fucking life. It's just always surface level, retarded, reproductive rights arguments in the fucking world. That's like all he does.
We do. I wanna finish that content, Nuke. I wanna get your takes. From you said you reacted to it on stream. I'll probably do that.
Well, no, I to be fair, I didn't react to the thing in its entirety, and I might in the future, because I was thinking about maybe bringing in some historians to also talk about it, regardless, because like at the end of the day, it is. I mean, it's important to address a lot of the false claims being made. Not necessarily about me being like pro-terror or whatever. That I hear that all the fucking time. That doesn't mean anything. Congressman Richie Torres wrote a letter to Twitch back in the day, like I think a week before his election. He was on the ballot, demanding that I get banned because I was like the arch pro-terrorist supporter. Richie Torres, of course, is a massive Israel advocate from one of the poorest districts in the country, and spends most of his time talking about Israel instead of his own constituents. But I get attacked by the ADL and stuff like that. All that stuff is ultimately meaningless. But I do care about the history of it, and I want to make sure that people are not misinformed about how things have taken place. Because I think that's what matters. The truth matters more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I can obviously respect the.
Wow, this is getting boring as fuck.
Yeah.
How about you just watch a video, Hasan?
Yeah, and I'm sure that there's maybe like a handful of people watching that are like, oh my god, Dean.
It's just like Dean says like one vaguely negative thing or vaguely like critical thing about Hasan. Hasan comes in, doesn't really address the broad strokes of the video. Just goes, yeah, it's all just DG haters, and then Dean folds. Okay. Wow. Awesome stuff here.
Sucking up to Hasan, and you're not.
Oh, no,
you're not
you guys are. Yeah, you guys are the arch debate lords. You can take me to task on this issue if you want.
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of your content.
I'll call you out. Okay, and I mean that. I will.
Yeah.
I will. I see some fuck shit. I'll do it.
Liar.
Let me tell you guys something. By the way, as someone who has also debated and still every now and then engages in debate, I will say. As a content creator who's been doing this for a very long time, I love what you guys are doing. I will urge you to, consistently end up debating and stuff, but like, I warn against the toxicity that might create for you. And it's good to diversify. It's good to diversify your content in general, and like do React content, more fun stuff, things of that nature, more educational content, because.
It's not legit. He's, debating doesn't last in the long run. Debating won't take you the whole way, kid. And Dean's just taking it. Dean's like, okay, Hasan, debating's gay. I realize now, Hasan. Yeah, debating sucks. You're right, Hasan.
There are a lot of people who enjoy the blood sport of it all, but they don't necessarily care about the truth. They just want to see dunks. And
Sorry, Hasan, my bad. Don't mean to interrupt you, bro. Dean Harry's in the box.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead and continue.
My bad.
yeah. So basically, what I'm saying is like, as someone who did a lot of debate initially, I think that I noticed at least like there's a point where it turns into you basically cultivate a community. I warn against this. You basically cultivate a community of people that just like want slam dunks, and it does become a little toxic in my experience. Maybe you guys are avoiding that. I don't know how it works on TikTok in general, but
Dean should thank all the donos while Hasan's talking. Yeah, that would require Dean to have like the spine or sense of self.
I would definitely diversify my content if I were in your shoes.
Well, I agree with you, and I can even expand on that. So apart from the cultivation of this niche that becomes toxic at a point because of post slam dunk.
This person typing is so retarded.
I like find myself falling into that sometimes. Sometimes somebody will just be pissing me off so much that I'm no longer focused on trying to inform and educate, and I'd just rather slam dunk their ass because they're really upsetting me. But then also, kind of like toxicity that it can cultivate outside of, like a toxic content creation environment and consumption environment is, God, dude, it does a lot to your mental well-being to just debate people for 4 hours a day. So I'm starting to expand outwards, and hopefully I'll soon be able to get to a point where I'm doing other content apart from debates. It's actually funny because you and the way you do your content, kind of like doing debates with some reactionary content and other
reactionary content, misusing the word reactionary when you're a politics guy.
Related forms of political information and education-esque content actually came up in a conversation I was having with somebody that's kind of been helping me. They're like, well, look at Hasan, he's doing it perfect, he does debates and reactionary content, and that seems like a much better way to live your life.
Well, for me, like I have a
Dude, what are the hand gestures and mannerisms and faces this little fucking retard is doing? It's so annoying, man. It's driving me crazy.
So, he's doing it perfect. He does debates and reactionary content, and that seems like much.
Look, what is the hand motion here? What is this? What is this communicating to me? He's just like, he is literally limp wrist, just waving his arm forward at the camera. What is that? That's not a Trump. That's not a Trump. That's not a Fuentes. What is this gesticulation?
Much better way to live your life. Being me, they're like, well,
it's like there's just a few things happening here. I think there's a few things happening here. Okay, I need to try and think through what's going on here. First of all, he's trying to be like laid back. See, he's got like this very relaxed slouch posture. Okay, he's got this very slouched posture. He's trying to be like aloof. He's like in a very deliberately slouched posture, and he's keeping his arms like limp. So he's like not putting much effort. He's like, oh yeah, it's just like this. Very aloof, very above it all. That's what he's trying to present with his body language. And so when he goes to do his hand gestures, he doesn't have like a very good idea of how to gesticulate in like a way that communicates or adds to his communication. So he's just sort of like limply moving his hand around while already being in this like deliberately aloof state. But then there's also this layer of TikTok mannerism where they're constantly looking to be sort of like bouncy and engaging, and that's where the sort of like head bobbing and the arm waving is coming from. So let's watch through
reactionary content and other related forms of political information and education-esque content actually came up in a conversation I was having with somebody that's kind of been helping me. They're like, well, look at Hasan, he's doing it perfect. He does debates and reactionary content, and that seems like
reactionary
much
content
better way to live your life.
Well, for me, like I have an ideological.
And then look, what is that, dude? What happens to his face here? What is the facial expression? What is going on? The head bobbing and weaving is a TikTok thing. I noticed this when I first played Zen Zone Zero, the gacha game, the Hoyoverse gacha game. When I first played that, I noticed that the animations were incredibly like they bob around non-stop. Like every movement is over exaggerated, and they bob and lock into place and like bounce around constantly. It never stops. I realized that's so that it's constantly engaging. It's like it's the jangling keys. It's the Zoomer ADHD shit where they want it to be clipped and people sit and it's like, oh my god, there's so much movement. It's so quick and action packed. It's like just it hits that part of their brain, and that's what Dean's doing. He's trained like a dog, like Pavlov's dog. He is trained to just bob his fucking head around to make these retarded 17-year-olds and drunk 55-year-old women who are, you know, just finishing their cleaning shift at a trailer park, who go on TikTok and watch him. He has to keep their attention by just constantly moving and bobbing and fucking hanging his mouth open. Watch.
Well, for me, like
I
have an ideological purpose.
His eyes go
and
wide and his mouth is just fucking agape. What are you doing? What is this?
Of your life.
Well, for me, like I have an ideological purpose, and it's not something that I hide.
What is happening here? Why does he have this gormless look on him?
Reactionary content, and that seems like a much better way to live your life.
Well, for me, like I have an ideological purpose, and it's not something that I hide. I've even, you know, openly admitted to. I call myself a propagandist on Piers Morgan's show, which everyone always points to. What do you mean you're a propagandist? Like
what is this face? What's this face? What is this? What face is it? What face is this? What emotion are we conveying here?
Like I don't like I use propaganda in the old terminology for it. I had a show on the Young Turks back in the day called agitative propaganda as well, where my goal is to try to instill class consciousness in the American working class, because I feel like that is what's most lacking from our political discourse in general. So, like I have an ideological goal. I want Americans to recognize that it's not your neighbors that are fucking you over. It's not undocumented migrants. It's not trans people. It's not DEI. And these things are simply purposeful distractions that reactionary forces utilize while they fucking rob you.
There is a concept, Dean Withers, but I'm simply not there. Dean Withers, you know, I will say this guy 100% in his favor, 100%. I guarantee you, Dean Withers' morning routine and Patrick Bateman's morning routine down to the monologue are probably eerily similar. Eerily similar, I get the feeling.
You blind with austerity and an overall refusal to improve your material conditions, whether that is the Republican Party in many circumstances, or even in other instances, the Democratic Party that refuses to push the needle in the direction of necessary change. So for that purpose, I'm saying I realized that like simply doing debates alone was not cutting it, because I wanted people to, I wanted to create a community that was engaged, listening, learning, and also seeking out information on their own. But more importantly, that they were also engaging in activism, organizing, whether that be community organizing or labor organizing. And I mean, I have a lot of obviously local officials in my chat at any given moment, or even people that apparently work at the DNC, which was shocking to me when I went there, but and of course many labor union organizers and activists in general. So that's what I mean when I say debates are great for content. It's good for slam dunks. It has an educational value for sure. You get to understand the opposition's position. You get to teach people what the talking points are, what their talking points are, and how to effectively counter them. And I think the takeaway for many in your audience will be how to effectively dismantle those propaganda points and the arguments that your grandparents or your parents might be making or your coworkers are making. But beyond that, I think in order for people to unlock their true potential and be able to bring about real progressive change and create systems of
Dude,
pressure.
this is so
like
painful
mechanism-
listening to this retard talk about nothing for 10 minutes at a time. Yeah, just so many community organizers. You know, dude, this is like such a good sign of like just leftist dribble. It's just drivel. Sorry, not dribble. Drivel is when they're just like, oh, community organizers, also community activists, community organizers. Anytime I start hearing the word community, it's like, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. God, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. Shut up.
Of pushback sometimes.
Yeah, community, praxis, organizing. These are like the buzzwords where you know someone is just talking shit.
Pushback that's even warranted towards the
The
Democratic
second
Party.
worst person in the world simps for the worst person in the world. FML.
Thank you for the 70 sec. Thank you.
I think that there's more to do. And it'll create a more sustainable career for you as well, in general, for all of you guys.
Yeah,
I haven't seen
so, I
Severance.
mean,
I haven't
at least
seen
when it comes to my approach, like I agree, like the left as a whole, or like progressives, and like in general, need a multifaceted approach in terms of like the different content people like go towards.
So guys, now is a great time to remind you, actually. We've got 430 people here right now. 78 likes on the stream. If some of those 350 or so people would mind please moving the cursor to the thumbs up and clicking it, or pressing the thumbs up on the mobile device, that'd be hugely appreciated. Now, if you want to take your support one step further, you can donate directly through the Stream Elements link in the pinned chat message. You can also buy a membership to the YouTube channel, gift a membership, gift a whole bunch of memberships randomly throughout the chat. Buy a super chat, which will highlight your message and read out on TTS if it's over $5, or buy a super sticker, which is a YouTube image or GIF will be highlighted in chat, and I'll describe it to you. You can go to discord.gg/Kuihman, twitter.com/Kuihman, or reddit.com/r/Kuihman. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And I also think that like for certain creators, there's going to be certain skill sets that you're going to have where you're going to be able to do a certain set of content very consistently, a lot more if you're interested in it, if you like doing it, and if you can bring the energy every single time. And as it relates to like things like debates, I think that like people like me and Dean, we have a lot more of a pressure and push internally to engage in that particular type of activism and work comparative to other forms, because it comes more naturally to us, or it's some like way we can explain things a little bit more in depth. And
Yo, Nate, gifting crazy memberships tonight. Thank you for the 20 gifted again, Nate. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Crazy oiling tonight from Nate. Hugely appreciated.
one thing I have an issue with in terms of content that's like reaction based or other stuff like that is that there's no back and forth direct sort of response from people. So I think that oftentimes it can create more echo chambers, like naturally, like when you engage in like reaction based content. So I actually think myself that like, of course there's going to be people who are just trying to look for slam dunks in terms of debate type content that's live debates. But I mean, I think that would be true for short form content, reaction based content, or any other form of content that would exist on social media. And I think actually is alleviated more when we engage in live debates, because it's like more in person, real. You can humanize people more because you're engaging in direct conversation. That's at least how I view it. But like, I think that, yeah, we should engage in other
You're right. No,
other
you're
content.
absolutely right.
Go back in the stream for
I
the
think there's
update.
definitely a space for debating, for sure. I'm not discounting that at all. I'm just saying that it's good to diversify your content as well. On top of that, for sustainability in general, and also on top of that, to create a broader community that has more interest, because
Dude, he
debates
does
do
just have,
sometimes
like,
a tendency
fucking-
to just like
Cattle eyes, doesn't he? He looks like cattle.
that has more interest, because debates do sometimes have a tendency to just like narrow your focus a little too much. That's all I'm saying. But
I
hey,
agree with that.
you guys are doing great. Don't get me wrong. You guys are killing it.
Yeah. I guess
appreciate that.
I guess the way I look at it is, like the only reason like I now have this career where I do like debates for 4 hours a day was because like 2.5 years ago I decided to load up TikTok at 3 a.m. and join some random person's live and try to convince them that they were wrong and I was right. And then it just kind of like snowballed into what it is now.
Parker absolutely mogs Dean. Yes, Parker absolutely mogs Dean. Parker is way smarter, way better at debating than Dean is. It's genuinely shameful that Dean allows himself to be on stream with Parker, just getting mogged every time this guy speaks. Parker's funnier too. Parker is like funnier and more charismatic and more of a person than Dean. I'm still like a huge fan. He's still kind of gay vibe to him, but he is way better than Dean. And when he literally, wasn't it Nate who donated the finasteride and minoxidil comments to Dean, and then Parker read them out. Parker read out to Dean like some donos from Nate, being like, Dean, you need to get on the minoxidil.
And you know, like what Parker said, I think that if we want to build this...
And then when Dean responded to it, like, seriously, Parker started laughing at him.
Literal fucking machine to get as many people as possible to be more and more progressive, right? And less bigoted, less on the right, further to the left. It requires a very multifaceted approach with a functioning ecosystem of different people that are doing different things. And like when I've had people come up on my live before and be like, "Oh,
yeah, Hasan should take Dean on a trip to Turkey for real.
You suck. You're just a rage baiter. You do reactionary content that does no good." I guess like on one hand, it's like I should do more for interests to society as well as self-interests. But then on the other hand, it's like, you know, I'm good at this. I'm going to focus on what I'm good at. And there's other individuals that will focus on what they're good at. But, you know, hopefully, I mean, if this turns into something long-term, I'll be good at multiple things, you know?
Yeah. Look,
like
I'm dog shit at gaming. I'm dog shit at gaming. I still play video games on a stream because I know that it like brings in a different audience as well. In my line of work, I've realized, especially the position that I'm advocating for, is one that either Americans especially are either completely oblivious to and have never heard of it, or are inherently antagonistic to. So charitability is the most important thing. And I think like collaborations and people seeing me in a different light and not just simply clips, because that's just the most common way that you know, people learn about other content creators, is the best way forward. But that's just for me. I'm not saying it's for all of you guys as well. I'm just sharing what I've seen through my experience. You know?
Yeah, of course, man. I feel like I've been talking a lot. Does anybody else want to hop in here?
Yeah, who wants to debate me? Harry, you go.
Harry, go ahead.
Hasan,
what do I have to say, man? One time on stream, well, you referenced Harry as like the DNC shill, and then you referenced me as the car guy. So at least Harry gets a name.
Hasan, do you still think I'm a shill?
I don't know. I haven't seen any of your new stuff, so I don't know.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, you'd see Harry as a shill. Yeah.
Let me ask you. No. This is important. What do you think about Hakeem Jeffries' performance so far?
Like, you mean as the minority leader just generally the past couple of years, or since Trump has gotten into office?
Since Trump, since Trump's coming.
Pretty mediocre. Mediocre.
All right. That's good.
I mean, it's been too weak. I don't like how he's not criticized like Eric Adams.
Yeah.
I think that's fucking insane. I know he's like taking the position of, oh, we have to wait and see if the charges are dismissed. I think that's bullshit.
Yeah.
I don't think he's been hard enough on Trump. I really don't like how like Jerry Connolly is leading the judiciary.
This is like turned into pure networking. This is just Hasan trying to get in good with these guys now. That is literally all that's happening. It's Hasan is just turning these guys to like be, you know, to go out onto their TikToks tomorrow and go and say, "Oh, I spoke to Hasan. He was a really cool guy. He seemed totally reasonable, actually. That Ethan Klein guy doesn't... He's been really uncharitable to this Hasan guy." That's basically, that's all that's happening here. It's Hasan just trying to turn them.
Jerry Committee and not AOC. I think we've been making like some very simple mistakes, so...
Yeah. Okay. That's good. That's helpful.
Hasan, it is possible to be nuanced. You know, like the moderate Democrats are too moderate, and the progressive Democrats are too progressive, and you could just be somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, Hasan won because they just folded the moment he came in. They were just like, "Oh, we want the clout. We want the clout."
I have a question too.
What's up?
Okay, and this is because I feel like I've been getting more radical in my views on this topic. But the main critique that I've seen from your supporters, and I think even you called me way too libbed out for this when you were reacting to my Jubilee episode.
I think it was the immigration stuff, maybe.
Immigration policy. Yes, I wanted to ask you about that. So, in accordance with the stance that I either showed on the Jubilee episode, or I could just kind of reiterate my thoughts on immigration now, I'd love for you to tell me why I'm wrong.
In accordance with my thoughts on the Jubilee... Dude. Someone got to do something about this kid. Someone got.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Okay. First, immigrate. I guess. Okay, we'll start with border policy. So, border policy. What I want in my best version of the world is as many ports of entry that operate as efficiently and as quickly as possible, with screening processes that specifically expel and do not allow people into the country that have committed violent crimes.
Fair.
And then for undocumented migrants that are already in America, for undocumented migrants that have committed violent crimes, to deport them. And for undocumented migrants that have not committed violent crimes, to offer them a pathway to residency or citizenship.
Sorry to cut you off. You don't. Oh, okay. So you don't want to deport undocumented migrants that haven't committed crimes, but undocumented migrants that have committed crimes, you want to deport them.
Specifically violent crimes, yeah.
No, specifically
W. Dean.
Okay. So I don't disagree with anything that you just said at all. I don't think we're in disagreement in terms of. Well, I guess the only thing that I would disagree with is if an undocumented migrant has caused a violent crime, I would want the American court system to handle it and actually imprison that person rather than allowing them to be free. Like, I don't want rapists to get a trip back home. You know what I mean? And then just be like, all right.
You know what? That's a good point. You know, if so if we would do like the deportation of undocumented migrants that have committed violent crimes, it'd be conditional given where they're deported would be where they land in a jail cell. Or
like, I mean, or I would rather house them in the American carceral structure to ensure that they are actually serving, like to ensure that they're just served. Here's a good debate tactic.
That's actually a great argument. I think that's a great point.
Ask Republicans every time they say, "Oh, I want undocumented migrants that have caused crimes to be deported." Ask them, why do you want rapists to roam free if they fucking did a rape? Why do you not? Let's say an undocumented migrant is like done a heinous.
Wow, yeah, son, that's a great point. Wow, yeah, son, great point, son.
That's not why great point, son. You don't want punishment. You don't want crimes to be punished. That's weird.
Great point, son. Wow, great point. Except they'll just say, no, I don't care if they roam free in fucking Mexico. Let Mexico deal with the Mexican rapists. That's what they'll say.
So that's a nice little debate tactic there, but it is something that I also believe. I want amnesty for all undocumented immigrants that are living on U.S. soil right now.
I assume this is a joke. People cannot be illegal. It's called empathy. Try it sometime.
As long as they have not committed like any sort of heinous violent crime. But even when we entertain the notion that like we're deporting violent criminals or the Trump administration is like going after violent criminals, I think you guys all know that that's not the case.
No,
it's not like the previous administration was like, "Oh, are you Guatemalan and you did a rape? Okay, sorry, we can't arrest you." Like, that's so fucking stupid. Like, no, of course, being arrested and being prosecuted, right? So that notion is like that premise that they operate off of is like a faulty hidden premise. The idea that like the Biden administration was not adequately targeting people that have done crimes regardless of their immigration status. And that's precisely the reason why I believe it was the Associated Press that came out with initial reporting that the majority of the undocumented migrants that have been deported so far, some of which aren't even undocumented, by the way, they are deporting documented non-citizens and undocumented non-citizens. And the majority of them had not committed any crimes. And a big chunk of those who had actually done crimes had done shit like trespassing. You know what I mean? Or obstructing justice, like ridiculous, erroneous claims that normally would be thrown out under any other circumstance. And
I was under the impression that majority of individuals that they've deported so far were individuals that have been documented as committing a crime or a violent crime. But the reason why that's the case is not because they wanted to only or focus on the deportation of undocumented migrants who have committed crimes, but rather those were just the easiest undocumented migrants.
Oh, are you talking about?
Dude. Okay, I've some funny tweets. Okay, one moment. I just saw this. This guy, I deadass almost had another incel phase because of this. Honestly, I think you're more than fine. You're a masterpiece in my eyes. I wish cute guys would say this, not guys who look like they are Ark Survival. Stop lusting, you're disgusting. And this is this is him.
Yeah, the ones that are in the prison system already. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and like the misconstruction from Trump supporters, creating a narrative that because for the first week 800 out of 1,000 deportations were from individuals that were already in the prison system. You know what I mean?
They deported people that were already in the prison system, and that's why they like Tom Homan is talking about setting up a facility inside of Rikers in New York because they want to just like quickly, expeditiously deport any undocumented migrant that's done a crime. I still think it's ridiculous to do that. I think it's better to serve justice rather than just like give people a free trip back home.
I think I agree with that.
Yeah, where they're free. I totally agree with that. Yeah, you're totally right when it comes to that. So it's totally, yeah, they would have to justify that the deportations wouldn't have freed people right into other places around the world because seemingly they would care about those places. Yeah. I mean, they would probably say some crazy shit like they don't give a fuck in most circumstances if you had someone who's not gonna lie.
Yeah, Republicans are insane. But the other secondary problem with the deportation of criminals is mass destabilization in the country that you're sending them back to, especially if you look at MS-13. If you look at the history of El Salvador, MS-13 is an is an El Salvadoran gang that was born out of undocumented migrants from El Salvador having to resort to gang violence and criminal activity in an effort to make ends meet. And then they got incredibly radicalized in the California prison structure. And then the American government sent them back to El Salvador without telling the El Salvadoran government that they were fucking criminals. And lo and behold, they now had a network where they could engage in international crime back and forth with the United States of America and basically overtook the government. I'm being a little reductive in the way that I'm explaining.
I've totally zoned out on this. This is fucking boring as shit. Get to the point, buddy.
The story, but that's the secondary problem of just like mass releasing criminals. Not saying that like the 800 people that they deported initially were all like MS-13 style criminals or whatever, but ultimately there's also that additional issue as well when you engage in mass deportations of criminals too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that we would disagree on immigration. Then I think a lot of our disagreements would probably be like on our liberal views. Like are you like a socialist that like prioritizes cooperatives or like state or like command control?
Well, I have a cooperative, but on top of that, no, I do believe in state control. I mean, I think we already have state control in general.
This is what Hasan is a master at. He talks so much, just tune him out and assume he said something.
Oh, in America as well. It's just that the incentive structure revolves around subsidies. I like cooperatives, and I think that there is a middle ground with like some market solutions, while still making sure that the state has the public best interest in mind in terms of creating commodities.
Okay, and then here's my question: is would you then like mandate there either as cooperatives or it's state control? Like if you had the ability to control that?
If I had the ability to control it, would I mandate every single corporate structure to be a cooperative structure?
Or like it would be state controlled, like nationalized?
Yeah. I think that the government should provide, at least in the interim, the government should provide basic necessities like shelter and become a market competitor, which would be unfair for the market, certainly, with the sole purpose of eventually eradicating certain necessary commodities from the private structure. You can have personal property all day, every day, of course, and even luxury goods or whatever kind of accommodations that you desire. But ultimately, it's more so rent seeking that I'm against. It's more so private property that I think is not good and is at the heart of all of this inequality. But this is stuff that's never going to happen in my lifetime, I don't think. I'm simply trying to move in the direction, at least in the short term, in the direction of modest reforms that genuinely improve people's lives.
So then my thoughts are that, like, it sounds like your goals are you want to achieve this.
The thing is that, okay, Hasan can say this shit. I'm in favor of modest reforms that change people's lives. I'm like, yeah, a lot of people will be on board with that. Even lib types are going to be on board with like the basic stuff of what Hasan's saying here. Like, oh yeah, it'd be kind of cool to move in that direction. Like, yeah, sure. Even libs are going to agree with that. But then the moment he doesn't get like a promise of like universal healthcare or UBI or whatever, or Palestine fucking, or recognizing Palestine as a state or whatever, you know, well, the moment he doesn't get that from a fucking candidate, he's like, don't support this candidate. Don't support this candidate. The Democrats have to take all the stance. The streets will run red with the blood of landlords. So like, he can say, "Oh yeah, I'm very moderate. I just want modest reforms to try and move in this direction." That's not how you act, is it? That's not how you act. This is like a lie that you're selling people here to get people on board.
In the future, but your thoughts are that you were not even close or even at that point at all entirely. So pragmatically, you're just going to end up being like a social democrat.
What I advocate for, my most radical perspectives don't come from domestic policy. It's usually my anti-imperialist positions that cause a lot of ire especially in the minds of a lot of Americans. But yeah, as far as domestic policy goes, yeah, I mean, I'm an advocate for nationalized healthcare structure. I'm an advocate for socialized medicine in general, public housing in general. But these are, I would say, relatively modest reforms that exist in one way, shape, or form in other social democracies in Europe, even though they are running into the same problems with the parasitic nature of capital in terms of, social democracies basically clawing back all of these social safety nets year over year with austerity measures, with the inevitable goal of privatization. And that is part of the reason why I think that, I'm, I guess, a little bit more radical in the long term with what I believe. But yes, in the short term, I advocate mostly for modest social democratic proposals.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I mean, it practically in terms of domestic policy sounds like we're like practically on like the same side and whatnot. Obviously, like that's why like we pretty much agree in terms of all like the policies.
I don't think he does though, does he? I just don't have a good knowledge of what actual specific policies Hasan supported and how hard he's ridden for them. I feel like this is a complete misrepresentation of Hasan's positions. The idea that he just believes in that he's totally on board if, with just pushing for modest social democratic reforms and moving things towards a more public system for necessities. And I don't believe that. That's not my understanding of Hasan's positions. I could be wrong. That's not my understanding of what he's argued.
I feel like a lot of leftists get really focused on like everyone agreeing on like those like sort of, I don't want to call them fringe economically related issues, but they're like, it's really like definitions and stuff. It's not like we don't pragmatically disagree. We get really focused on like, oh, we have that type of disagreement when we're in reality arguing, at least in the time period, the same thing.
Yeah. Well, the reasons for why I advocate for these things might be a little different than yours, aside from like genuinely improving people's lives. And this is another thing that I'm not like secretive about, but.
All right, so relevant clip.
Of reality.
You're describing the reason why so many people simultaneously consider me to be a Democratic Party mouthpiece or a suck dem or whatever the fuck, but also a threat to America as well, because I do, just like you said, I do advocate for social democratic reforms, and I do think that in order to develop any kind of mechanism of pushback, a robust labor force that has any kind of, speaking power, any kind of fighting power to strike at the heart of the imperial core where value is generated, I think that in the short term, in order to combat against that, you have to advocate for a much lighter form of propaganda. Despite, I perfectly understand that social democracies benefit tremendously from American imperialism, Western imperialism, and would not exist in the way that they do without such atrocities committed, right? But, if you want America in the way that I feel about it, and if you want America to get out of the way for places with more revolutionary potential to do what they would normally do, I think that, one thing you have to do is advocate for a lighter form while simultaneously still doing agitated propaganda that goes beyond,
right,
social democratic ideas.
I just wanted to put emphasis on the exact point of the so-called radicalization funnel where, for example, Hasan and JT catch them while they're young, as they say, and then they start looking into this new idea, etc., and then move forwards through the funnel, get more and more informed, get more and more radicalized, and so on, can only work and can absolutely utilize, for example, the stuff that Hasan does, because Hasan does one very particular thing that social democrats that, for example, we would never call to this podcast or we would give a lot of shit to, because they cut the funnel from both sides. What do I mean by this? They introduce people to, you know, lukewarm socialist ideas, etc., and then they want to keep them there, right? Well, whenever Hasan introduces people to socialist ideas, yes, the lukewarm, not so scary sounding ones, you know, keeping your power levels low, hidden, and so on and so on. He does not stop them from progressing through the funnel and getting additional and additional information and so on. He doesn't agitate against, for example, the revolutionary perspective and so on and so on. That is the main difference. You know, you do your part in the funnel for the cause or whatever the fuck you want to.
No, I mean, yeah, he's just nodding, agreeing it. So yeah, literally, it is just hiding power level. It's just like total dishonesty. Okay.
I see a noticeable lack of class consciousness in the American working class in general. There is tremendous class consciousness for capital owners, whether they even recognize it or not, and they don't even need to have class consciousness because the system is structured to benefit their needs regardless, and to, you know, continue their position as you know, generating engaging in capital accumulation. The entire system is designed in that way. But the reasons as to why I think it's important to be able to do this is because I want labor unions and labor militancy to at least exist in this country, so that there's a valid mechanism of pushback against politicians on the Republican side of the spectrum, certainly, but even on the Democratic side as well. Because I think without, like, there's never been a moment throughout American history or history at all where concessions were given to the working class, whether it be the fucking weekends or whether it be, you know, paid leave or any of those things, or the abolition of child labor, without real labor militancy. That has simply never happened. And the same goes for social struggles as well. Same goes for civil rights. Like, militancy is an absolute necessity. And I see the American working class as completely removed from that conversation, where they just understandably see themselves as powerless in this structure. And I think that breeds resentment, hostility, and it creates, paired up with the economic volatility that many Americans experience, that creates a perfect ground for right-wing reactionary fascist movements to grow. And that's what we're seeing in America.
Mm-hmm. I think I agree with that. So I'm not as educated on economics as Parker is, but what I will say is, seemingly that's compatible with like a social democrat model to like advocate for more class consciousness, to like, you know, get you know, more social reform, better programs for individuals in like, you know, the low middle class, and, you know, create economic policy in which centers the average citizen or constituent of a country compared to, you know those who have the most money. But I will say, maybe the more we advocate for class consciousness, the more I educate myself on, you know, like this paradigm of conflicts between you know, classes of wealth and how to effectively resolve them. Maybe that just naturally leads you down this pathway of becoming just completely radicalized socialist, you know?
I don't think like, I mean, I joke and I say like, yeah, I have radical beliefs, but like, I mean, what's the saying? It's,
I'm sorry, that was a play on words. I was joking too.
No, it's by no measure of mental wellness to be well adjusted to a completely insane society. Like, think about it that way, where advocacy for socialized medicine is seen as a bridge too far for many Americans who are so heavily propagandized, no matter how brilliant they fancy themselves to be. The independent thinkers who think that like social medicine means like, oh, we're going to do Venezuela style rat eating in America or whatever the fuck, right? So like, I wouldn't necessarily say it's
this sucks, man. This sucks.
Radicalization, more so an evolution, by recognizing the understandable contradictions that are baked into capitalism. Because capitalism was an advancement from the previous mode of commodity production, for sure. But
we need class consciousness. Oh, what's that? Give some boring, rambling thing about how poor people need to rise up. Thanks, Son. Yeah.
Most of even what Marx talks about in terms of capitalism is not necessarily, you know, attacking capitalism at all, but instead simply describing capitalism with.
He eats like a freak. What is going on here?
Compile rat eating in America is seen as a bridge. I mean, I
between you know, classes of wealth and how to effectively resolve them. Maybe that just naturally leads you down this pathway of becoming just completely radicalized socialist, you know?
I don't think like, I mean, I joke and I say like, yeah,
like flicks it around his
radical
mouth.
beliefs, but like, I mean,
like taking little bites and
what's
shit.
The saying? It's
chewing it so much.
That was a play on words. I was joking too.
No, it's by no measure of mental wellness to be well adjusted to a completely insane society. Like, think about it that way, where advocacy for socialized medicine is seen as a bridge too far for many Americans who are so heavily propagandized, no matter how brilliant they fancy themselves to be.
Dude,
the independent thinkers who think that like social medicine means like, oh, we're going to do Venezuela style rat eating in America or whatever the fuck, right? So like, I wouldn't necessarily say it's radicalization, more so an evolution, by recognizing the understandable contradictions that are baked into capitalism. Because capitalism was an advancement from the previous mode of commodity production, for sure. But most of even what Marx talks about in terms of capitalism is not necessarily, you know, attacking capitalism at all, but instead simply describing.
Dude. What is happening here? What is happening here?
Attacking capitalism at all, but instead simply describing capitalism.
Dude. What is he even eating? What is this? What is it that he's eating? It looks like, is it a sap? He's like tearing up pieces of bread or something? It's chicken? It's just chicken breast?
Describing capitalism with dialectics, like through the assessment of, and you might think it's a little bit reductive.
Dude, what does he do there? Why does he slide it in like that? Why does he slide it in?
Assessment of, and you might think it's a little.
Do you see that? He like slides it in 3 times. He like he edges it in. He like does 3 movements of the chicken. There's 3 distinct movements of the chicken where he slowly moves it into his mouth. Look, he's holding it right at the edge. Not at the bottom of the chicken and just putting it in his mouth. Okay, he could just hold it at the bottom of the chicken and just put it in his mouth. And you could chew that chicken. Like, you can just put that piece of chicken in your mouth and eat it. Right, you could literally just place that in your mouth and chew it and swallow it. That's not a particularly huge amount of chicken that he's got there. It's quite a small piece of chicken. Yet he's chosen to hold it at the top of the strip. I have seen it, Dave. Hold it at the top of the strip. And he places his fingers right up to his lips and puts the edge of the chicken in his mouth. And then in 3 distinct movements, of the finger, he slowly edges the chicken into his mouth. Let's watch this. Let's see this.
You might
look. You see that? He like grips it between his lips and teeth, and he's like slowly moving it up into his mouth. Look, 1, 2,
you might
3.
I think it's a little bit reductive at this point, but like through an assessment of like capital.
Why? Who eats like that?
The assessment of, and you might think it's a little bit reductive at this point, but like through an assessment of like capital accumulators, the capital owners, the bourgeoisie, and the workers that are wage laborers in general, the proletariat. So that's just, it's more so a description of how things are, and not necessarily like moralizing a certain position that like, workers are always good, or they always do the right things, or anything like that. There's no good bad dynamics there at all, and instead it's just about describing how capital is accumulated.
Dean just got hit with
I'm having some technical difficulties.
Yeah, hit with technical.
Got hit with a meteor, dude.
Yeah, I guess my thoughts
I
on.
understand how glorious Xi Jinping's application TikTok would do this right as I'm talking about abolishing the commodity form.
Oh, he's gone.
Yeah, I guess where I'm coming from, and I'm coming from someone who used to be a socialist myself for a pretty long time, and actually started my whole content creation, like creating like leftist and socialist content, is that like a lot of these issues that exist, I think, can be solved with social democracy. And a lot of people say that there's like issues with social democracy. It starts to corrupt. People start to fight and advocate against it. But I don't think that's a critique against social democracy in of itself. I think that just means that you just need to maintain social democracy in the same type of way like we maintain our democracy.
Well, man,
like
social democracy hasn't been tried.
Well, I mean, like we could say that like we don't think that this real certain form has been tried, and I think that it's cool. But like my argument would then be is that we'd have to try it on smaller levels to be able to see whether or not it works on a larger form in order to be able to say that like it's actually effective. I don't think we'd be able to say that we should adopt it on some sort of globalized production model if it is the case that we don't have any type of level of actual probabilistic means of demonstrating how likely it is that it's going to be beneficial for workers or for people, because we could actually like hurt some of our concerns, like quality of life for workers, if we don't take that into account when we're like applying these sorts of systems, if we don't know what the empirical effect is of these different types of theoretical models. Like
Dude,
theoretical
look,
models.
he's such a fucking weirdo.
Let's say that theoretical models can't be then used or seem to be effective later on, but it's like we just need evidence to indicate that these particular models are effective before we establish it on such a pragmatic basis worldwide, is what I would say.
Yeah, I mean, we're not getting there anytime soon anyway. I'm not saying like tomorrow with a magic wand we are going to dissolve the class structure and live in a moneyless.
Wiggle it? It's like he's having trouble breaking it. Like he can't, like his incisors aren't strong enough to get through the chicken or something. It's so strange. It's actually so fucking weird, man. Like he grips and wiggles it to break it,
actual probabilistic means of demonstrating how likely it is that it's going to be beneficial for workers or for people, because we could actually like hurt some of our concerns, like, oh, quality of life for workers, if we don't take that into account when we're like applying these sorts of systems, if we don't know what the empirical effect is of these different.
Look, he has to tear it in his mouth. He can't just eat it. He can't just bite through the chicken. Have it in his mouth. Like, you would just, surely any normal person would just pick up the piece of chicken breast, if they were eating chicken breast like this, which is already strange anyway. I don't know why. Sure, you would use like some kind of cutlery for eating chicken breast, and usually with something as well, like at least like chicken and rice, no? If that's what you're going with. I don't know. Anyway, he's eating this chicken breast, and he's picking it up, and instead of just biting through it, awesome sauce, and instead of just biting through it and then chewing it in his mouth and swallowing like any normal person would do, he has to slide it into his mouth, grip, tear, use force to tear on the end of the chicken while holding it still with his teeth, and then he like moves it around his mouth. He probably like wets it. He probably like, wets it with saliva, and slowly breaks it down in his mouth instead of like chewing properly. I think is what's happening here.
Different types of theoretical models. Not to say that theoretical models can't be then used or seem to be effective later on, but it's like we just need evidence to indicate that these particular models are effective before we establish it on such a pragmatic basis worldwide, is what I would say.
Yeah, I mean, we're not getting there anytime soon anyway. I'm not saying like tomorrow with a magic wand we are going to dissolve the class structure and live in a moneyless, classless, stateless society. You know.
Yeah, my thoughts even then, like, would even a stateless society be like desirable in the future? Like, even if we hit like full automation. So I don't want to like full on socialist debate you, but like, even if we hit full automation, like, would it even be desirable for us to get rid of that? Like, because we still want a state to like limit people from committing crimes, right?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I'm not a communist, so I think that like I can't even imagine what that would look like in general. But the way I explain it is like I'm not opposed to it. You know, I wouldn't say I'm a communist, but I wouldn't say that I'm opposed to a stateless, moneyless society, a borderless society.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, would you be against like the enforcement of certain types of laws? Like once we meet that society, I feel like in a communist society, there's no government that would enforce laws against like pedophilia. I feel like that would be true, right?
No, yes, obviously. That's why I'm saying I'm not a communist. But if society evolved in a way where,
dude, wait, is Parker raping Hasan right now? I got distracted by the eating. Am I hearing Parker rape communism right now?
From committing crimes, right?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I'm not a communist, so I think that like I can't even imagine what that would look like in general. But the way I explain it is like I'm not opposed to it. You know, I wouldn't say I'm a communist, but I wouldn't say that I'm opposed to a stateless, moneyless society, a borderless society.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, would you be against like the enforcement of certain types of laws? Like once we meet that society, I feel like in a communist society, there's no government that would enforce laws against like pedophilia. I feel like that would be true, right?
No, yes, obviously. That's why I'm saying I'm not a communist. But if society evolved in a way where
there weren't laws against pedophilia, well, Hasan wouldn't have a problem with it.
We're talking so far out there. Like we're now talking about theoretically what it would look like, right? We're basically fantasizing about a world that is from where I'm standing impossible to imagine. But I think like the argument, I guess, would be that one, obviously, most crime in general, with the exception of like antisocial personality disorder related crimes, are like psychopathy or sociopathy, like things like that. Crimes born out of crimes that might be born.
He's about to say this is retarded. This is next level retarded. What, you think you're on other mental illnesses that cause criminality?
Disorder related crimes are like psychopathy or sociopathy, like things like that. Crimes born out of crimes that might be born out of like mental problems. And not to say that like people with mental health issues are criminals or whatever. I'm not saying that at all. But with the exception of those, like most crime is done because of financial circumstances, like your material conditions create a likelihood.
Okay, but Parker was asking about pedophilia, Hasan. Parker was asking about pedophilia, Hasan. He wasn't asking about shoplifting.
For you to go out and do crime. And I think the argument there is that like in that structure, it's already all of your needs are addressed anyway. So the only remaining crime would possibly be, like you said, pedophilia, which I guess at that stage, medical advancements would have found a solution for that as well. Like I'm assuming that's what the...
Well, you see, in the communist utopia, we wouldn't even need to worry about laws for pedophilia because the communist utopia is so amazing that we're going to have cured pedophilia. Wow, very, very awesome stuff, Hasan. Great stuff, Hasan. Thank you, Hasan. Wow, what a fucking retard this guy is. What a fucking empty-headed moron this guy is. Imagine listening to this and thinking this is a satisfactory answer to that question. No, you would obviously still have to have some kind of fucking enforcement, Hasan. You're still going to need some enforcement. You're going to need someone to go, hey, pedophile, you need to be chemically castrated, or whatever we're going with here. You need to go to pedophile therapy, whatever your plan is here, son. Someone needs to be making them do that. It's going to require some kind of hierarchy structure, monopoly on violence, something there.
That's what it would look like if I were to envision a communist society. So the concept of crime in and of itself would be entirely destroyed, considering that the overwhelming majority of crime is born out of material conditions.
I mean, you can also just appeal to some libertarian enforcement mechanism, right? Don't forget those collectives, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a libertarian by any means. So, and that's part. Like, I'm a state enjoyer. I often, especially in this past month, I've been talking quite a bit about how we should have a million more government employees. I think it's fucking ridiculous that we're trying to cut government employees rather than hire more people for the government. I think that's one of the biggest problems in America is that we don't have enough people doing jobs in general.
That's crazy. Again, I'm just so proven right. Parker just mugs Dean every time. Brief moment of interesting conversation that actually happened where Hasan was actually almost pressed on something. It's just Parker. It's just Parker carrying.
Yeah, like I'll give you the TSA as an example. I flew into Salt Lake City for the day to shoot a podcast with my co-host who has escaped to Utah. Okay, and it was fucking annoying. I was waiting in line, and I was waiting in line for a fucking hour. Okay, it sucked. And back in the day, I used to be like, man, fuck these guys. Like, these guys suck at their jobs. They're just like sitting around twiddling their thumbs, not doing a good job. Now I'm woke. I realize that it's not because of the individual employee that's like handling this insane amount of demand. It's that somewhere along the line, someone decided that we're going to need to do budget cuts and that we're not going to be able to open up the extra lines, right? Because we don't want to pay for the salaries of additional TSA employees at the time. Same with luggage handlers, right? Like anywhere where you experience as a consumer, anywhere you experience any sort of issue, our immediate inclination is that it's actually the fault of the individual workers who are fucking lazy, and that's wrong. That's just simply incorrect. It is directly because companies are corner cutting, cost cutting, and the most malleable aspect of commodity production always is going to be labor. So you cost cut by forcing 4 people to do the job of 8, especially when you can get away with it, especially when conditions have deteriorated and you're fearful that you might lose your job and then lose your fucking house, or not be able to pay rent anymore. The same principle holds for the federal government as well. TSA employees are already technically federal government employees anyway. That's why I use that as an example. Trump cut a bunch of TSA employees as well. I think it was like 300 or something. Really,
I like how it's ironic how MAGA says like these criminals are like taking our jobs, but really it's Donald Trump who's the criminal taking our jobs.
Yeah,
from federal employees. Kind of crazy shit. That's I don't mean to like go into a whole socialism debate with you, but yeah, thanks for answering all my questions. Like yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, no problem.
Hasan, I got a question.
All right, let's hear it.
So, it's been funny. Okay, so it's about every like 30 to 45 days, I'll check my Twitter DMs and I'll see a new DM from you saying, "Pop out to LA and come on the show." And it's just been so funny because it's been happening for like 6 months. And at this point, I think it's hilarious. I'm no.
I told you next time you're in LA, hit me up. But you were like, "Oh, I'll come to LA even just for that alone." I was like,
yeah, bro, I'll pop on just for that.
I felt like that was too much pressure. I don't know where you live, but that's like.
It's not. Don't worry, I live in LA, so if you come out and see me too.
Yeah, I got a $65 flight one way to LA from my local airport.
Hell yeah. What do you guys think about Jubilee, Straight Arrow News? That's my biggest gripe with Jubilee.
Oh my God, I hate their fact checking so much. It's the worst ever. Also, like I think what they did with Michael Knowles here recently was pretty negligent on their behalf.
Straight Arrow News that presents itself as an impartial news outlet, a fact checker, is actually owned by a fucking billionaire dude. I forget what his name is. Hold on, let me look this up real quick.
That's actually a crazy issue. I was literally on stream like bitching. I was like, I don't know if I'm tripping, but these fact checks are trash.
Are horrible.
Like,
I know, right?
I thought I was like being dumb. I was like,
so fact checks are right leaning,
bro. The fact, they're always missing like incredibly important context. So they almost are purposely misleading. It's awful.
I think those are ad reads almost.
So I stepped away for 2 seconds. Did I miss a song getting totally odd?
It's just been so funny because it's been happening for like 6 months. And at this point, I think it's hilarious. I'm no.
I told you next time you're in LA, hit me up. But you were like, "Oh, I'll come to LA even just for that alone." I was like,
yeah, bro, I'll pop on just for that.
I felt like that was too much pressure. I don't know where you live, but that's like.
It's not. Don't worry, I live in LA, so if you come out and see me too.
Yeah, I got a $65 flight one way to LA from my local airport.
Hell yeah. What do you guys think about Jubilee, Straight Arrow News? That's my biggest gripe with Jubilee.
Oh my God, I hate their fact checking so much. It's the worst ever. Also, like I think what they did with Michael Knowles here recently was pretty negligent on their behalf.
Straight Arrow News that presents itself as an impartial news outlet, a fact checker, is actually owned by a fucking billionaire dude. I forget what his name is. Hold on, let me look this up real quick.
That's actually a crazy issue, man. I was literally on stream like bitching. I was like, I don't know if I'm tripping, but these fact checks are trash.
Are horrible.
Like,
I know, right?
I thought I was like being dumb. I was like,
so fact checks are right leaning,
bro. The fact,
yeah,
they're always missing like incredibly important context. So they almost are purposely misleading. It's awful.
I think those are ad reads almost.
Yeah,
I almost
weird,
think that they're ad reads.
It's weird.
So if you go on their website, the first thing that comes up on the commentary side is Dr. Frank Luntz. Do you guys know who that is?
Where do I know the name?
Oh yeah,
the name sounds familiar.
No, just
he is
seething
a
about
right-wing pollster,
Jubilee.
very famous right-wing pollster, and wears the ugliest toupee of all time.
Thanks, guys.
And also
Great
is
stuff.
responsible for, I don't know if you guys watched Vice, Adam McKay's movie Vice about Dick Cheney, but there's an entire segment dedicated to him. He's responsible for things like coming up with new ways of selling the Bush-Cheney administration's like insane proposals, like death tax. Yep. Yeah, that it used to be called estate tax, but now it's called death tax because of the likes of Frank Luntz. But beyond Frank Luntz, the entire thing is owned by. I'm trying to figure out the name of the guy who owns it. Like not on the advisor board. If you look at their advisor board on the website, you'll find out that there's like a bunch of right-wing people on there. But like, oh, Joe Ricketts, that's the guy. Joe Ricketts is the CEO and founder of Straight Arrow News. He is also I think he's a TD Ameritrade. Yeah, he founded the company that later became TD Ameritrade, the securities industry leader.
Kelly busting out the amaranth inhaling pot pie last night had me rolling. Drunk at the Charlotte airport and I'm not even in chat.
Thank you for the $4. Thank you.
That empower self-directed investors with powerful, innovative investment tools and training. TD Ameritrade was acquired by Charles Schwab Corporation in November of 2019. Now, when you look up Joe Ricketts, however, on Wikipedia, you'll find out a little bit more.
I'm assuming being cooked. There is no cooking happening. There is zero cook. It is cold as fuck. Nothing is being cooked right now.
About little old Joe Ricketts' political perspectives. Aside from the fact that he's obviously a fucking billionaire, so he's,
dude owns the Chicago Cubs. I don't know.
Yeah, he's not going to have great opinions in general, being a billionaire. But then you look up, his anti-Muslim and racist email controversy.
Oh God, Jesus Christ!
And you find out that Splinter News in February 5th, 2019, released a cache of Ricketts' email from 2009 to 2014. He wrote that Islam could not create a civil society, that we cannot ever let Islam become a large part of our society, and that Muslims are naturally in parentheses, our enemy. Included were Obama citizenship conspiracy theory emails and claims that Obama favored Islam over other religions. Included were multiple racist joke emails that he received and responded to positively, including slurs against Black and Hispanic people. He apologized for the emails after they were made public.
And this is the company that does the fact checking.
Totally not biased.
That's actually kind of crazy.
My thoughts are, and I've kind of gathered these thoughts just from the 2 episodes I shot, is that all of their production team is all very liberal, lived out in like the best way possible. Okay.
Yep.
Cool. But then all of their post production, are like some incel 34-year-old men that lean so far right. It's unhealthy, right? And that's kind of the dynamic that I've seen because everybody in production
isn't Hasan like 35?
Super fun.
As he going crazy at 34-year-olds?
Yep. But then the moment it goes to posts, that's when it gets a little bit tricky. And then one other small thing that I noticed was for the episode that I filmed, this one woke teen versus 20 Trump supporters. I had no control over what happened with the content that was filmed. It was sent to their post team and it was put live on YouTube. But something I noticed was that when Ben Shapiro did his episode, they gave him and his team full editorial control over what parts of it went live and what parts of it didn't go live.
And one thing that happened with that is that like they actually cut off my main debate with Ben and they put it on the second Jubilee channel. And the same thing with like my debate on politics with Charlie. They completely cut it out from like the main video and posted it on like the second account or whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, at least they still made use of it, so that's good.
That is true.
That is, of course, these guys are very big content creators in general, so they probably get those assurances ahead of time, and it's in Jubilee's best interest to keep them happy. Like, I'm sure if I did the same thing, they would probably give me the same assurances as well. I wouldn't say that's an indication of their right-wing leanings. But the entire concept of, debate the humanity of trans people with trans people in and of itself is already, like, inherently right-wing, in my opinion. Not to say I'm against that sort of thing at all. Like, I'm not anti-debate across the board. But it always starts on this, like, faulty premise. It always starts on this, like obvious imbalance. Like, there was a...
Yes, that's what pisses me off, is that debate about the existence of trans individuals already is, a little bit iffy. But then what they do is they'll get some PR media trained in it for, like, 20 years, right-winger.
It's making him the hero, and putting him against people who are not professional debaters. Like, when they're not professional debaters and they're just randoms, and the person who's the hero is arguing that transgenderism should be eradicated from public life entirely. That's what's problematic, is that, like, the hero, the person who's being shown to be, like, oh, the rational person, while there's a person on the other side.
No one cares! No one cares. Wow. Shut up, man. No one cares about your gay fucking show that you get bitched out on every week. God, it's so fucking annoying. Yeah, okay, now it's time to whine. Okay, now it's time to sound smart. Back to whining. Gotta sound smart again. Yeah, just constantly. Constantly. It's so fucking irritating. Oh, Jubilee's so right-wing. Jubilee treats us so bad. The fact checks are always wrong. They don't fact check in my favor. Dude, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. God, how's anyone watch this?